Welcome to Yellowstone Story. Every story holds a lesson, a twist, or a spark of inspiration. Here, we dive into gripping tales, some heartwarming, some shocking, but all unforgettable. So sit back, relax, and let's begin. I stood by the window watching the snowflakes gently fall onto the city streets. My thoughts were scattered, my gaze empty, just another evening, no different from hundreds before. In my hand, the phone. On the other end, Alex. His voice was calm, familiar. He was talking about his business trip to New York. Everything was going according to plan. The meeting was successful, and he would be back in 3 days. I nodded, already preparing to end the call. Everything was routine, as always. But something made me freeze. A stranger's voice, a woman's, young, light, almost playful. "Alex, are you coming? I've already filled the bath." My breath caught. My fingers tightened around the phone. My heart stopped for a second, then started pounding so fast it roared in my ears. I pressed the phone closer, but it was too late, only short beeps. He had hung up. My legs weakened, and I sank into the chair. My mind was spinning with fragmented thoughts. That voice, the bath. Alex. What bath in a business trip? The oddities of the past few months surfaced in my mind. The increasingly frequent trips, the late-night calls Alex took out on the balcony, the new cologne that had mysteriously appeared in his car. All of it had seemed insignificant, until now, when the pieces started forming a complete picture. My hands trembled as I opened my laptop. I had known his email password for years, from a time when trust and honesty existed between us. Logging in was easier than I wished it to be. Tickets, hotel reservation, honeymoon suite, a 5-star hotel in the heart of New York. 2 guests. The inbox held more than just bookings. Sophie, 26 years old, a fitness trainer. She wrote to him, called him my love, begged him not to keep stalling, reminded him that he had promised to get a divorce 3 months ago. Asked how much longer she had to wait. Nausea rose in my throat. Memories of our first date surfaced. Back then, Alex was just a junior manager, and I had only started my career as an accountant. We had saved for over a year to afford our wedding, living in a small rented apartment. We had celebrated our first successes together, supported each other through failures. Now he was a successful commercial director, and I was the chief accountant at the same company. Between us stood 15 years of life, and Sophie, 26 years old. A gap that couldn't be measured. The phone vibrated again, and I saw a new message, not from Alex, from her. "You deserve to know the truth. Alex has been cheating on you with me for months. He promised to get a divorce but keeps delaying it. It's unfair to both you and me. You deserve to know he has another woman. I love him and want to be his wife." I read those words over and over, nausea rising in my throat. Sophie hadn't just taken my husband, she was demanding that I hand him over myself. She was convinced that she belonged by his side, that all she needed to do was push me to make the decision. Meanwhile, in the hotel room, Alex paced from corner to corner, his fists clenched. He was angry. At her. At himself. At the chaos that now seemed inevitable. Sophie lay on the bed, casually draped in a silk robe, her blonde hair spread across the pillow. There was not a hint of regret in her voice. She stretched like a well-fed cat, her gaze calm, almost lazy. To her, everything that had happened was a logical step. Hadn't he promised? Hadn't he said he would get a divorce? She was simply tired of waiting. Alex knew there was no way out now. I wasn't a fool. I had already figured everything out. Nothing had gone as he had planned, but there was no one to blame but himself. Sophie sat up abruptly, her voice turning sharper. She was done being the hidden mistress, confined to hotel rooms. She wanted a real life. To meet his friends, go to restaurants with him, take his last name. Alex stepped back, rubbing his face in exhaustion. She was acting like a child demanding a toy. But he had allowed this to happen. Sophie rose from the bed, anger flashing in her eyes. She was younger, more beautiful, capable of giving him children. And what could I offer him? Just counting his money? Alex flinched. Her words hit like a slap. He grabbed her shoulders, his grip firm. No one had the right to speak about his wife that way. No one. But Sophie only smirked. She knew enough. Sophie tore herself from his grip, her eyes burning with fury and contempt. She knew he was unhappy. She knew his marriage had long turned into a routine, that I was buried in work, household chores, bills, responsibilities. When was the last time we were close? When had we taken a trip just to enjoy each other? Alex turned to the window, the lights of New York shimmering beyond the glass. But far away, in Billings, in our home, everything was falling apart. 15 years of life crumbled like a house of cards, all because of one message, one sentence from a reckless girl who believed she could take my place. I sat in the dark kitchen, gripping a cup of cold tea. The phone buzzed again and again. Dozens of missed calls from my husband. I didn't answer. What was there to say? Darling, I heard your mistress calling you to the bath, and she even sent me a message asking me to give you up to her. Memory was merciless, replaying the moments of our life together. Alex on one knee in a restaurant, slipping a ring onto my finger. Us moving into our first apartment, small but cozy, filled with hopes and plans. Him holding my hand when I lost the most important person in my life, my mother. He had always been there. Always. But now, I was alone. I remembered how we celebrated his promotion. That night, Alex looked happy, proud. I was proud of him too. Back then, we still dreamed. And then, the endless race began. Work, deadlines, loans, home renovations. When was the last time we simply talked? When was the last time we watched a movie together, curled up on the couch, without checking emails or answering calls? When was the last time we made plans that weren't just about budgets and mortgage payments? The phone vibrated again. A message. Darling, let's talk. I can explain everything. Explain what? That I had grown older? That I had drowned in routine? That a young fitness trainer understood his desires better than I did? I walked up to the mirror. When had this begun? This exhaustion in my eyes, this habit of living by a schedule, this endless chase for stability that somehow never brought peace. Meanwhile, Sophie greeted him with a displeased look as he returned to the hotel room after yet another failed attempt to reach me. Not now, he said, sinking into the chair and loosening his tie. What does that mean, Alex? She asked, standing in front of him with her arms crossed. Sophie demanded an answer. She wanted to know what would happen next. After all, he had to make a choice now. She stood before him, beautiful, confident, full of life. Once, I had been like that too. How could he do this to me? Alex ran his hands over his face, exhausted. He knew he could no longer stall, but the realization of his decision brought no relief. Sophie beamed, convinced she had won. But when he gently pushed her away, confusion flickered in her eyes. She hadn't expected this. Alex no longer had doubts. This had all been a mistake. Yes, we had problems. Yes, we had grown distant. But erasing 15 years of life, memories, victories, and losses, he couldn't do it. Sophie trembled, tears streaming down her cheeks. But he didn't try to comfort her. He knew where he belonged. He knew who truly mattered to him. Happiness doesn't come on its own. It has to be built. Mistakes aren't fixed by running away. A knock on the door echoed through the quiet night, just past midnight. I knew who it was. Alex had taken the first flight home. His voice was muffled through the door. I opened it. He stood there, unshaven, his suit wrinkled, his eyes heavy with guilt. I said nothing, simply stepped aside, letting him in. We walked into the kitchen, the place where we had once dreamed of our future, where we had made important decisions, where our life together had begun. I didn't want excuses. I didn't want to hear that it had been a mistake. I simply raised my hand. making it clear that I already knew everything. Sophie, 26 years old, fitness trainer. I had read his emails. He nodded, unable to find the words. I asked only one thing: why? Alex was silent for a long time, staring out at the city lights. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, as if the confession was too heavy to bear. He had been weak, afraid that we had become strangers. He had been looking for someone who reminded him of the woman I used to be, the one who didn't think about bills, work, or household chores, the one who burned with dreams and plans. But now he understood what he had done. He turned to me, his gaze heavy. It was over. He didn't want to lose. He didn't want to lose me. He didn't want to lose us. He knew he didn't deserve forgiveness. But he was asking for a chance to start over. Alex spoke about how we could try to fix everything, see a therapist, spend more time together, try to become the people we once were. I looked at him, older, grayer, but still painfully familiar. 15 years wasn't just a number. It was hundreds of shared memories, habits, inside jokes only we understood. It was the ability to sit in silence, the ability to forgive. But could I? The words caught in my throat, and for the first time that evening I cried. I didn't know. I just didn't know. Alex gently pulled me into an embrace, and I didn't pull away. Outside, snow fell slowly, covering Billings in a white blanket. Somewhere far away, in a hotel room in New York, a girl cried, facing a harsh truth for the first time. Love wasn't passion, romance, or pretty promises. It was a choice that had to be made every single day. And here, in the kitchen, two not-so-young people were trying to piece together the fragments of their life. Ahead of us lay a long road, through hurt and mistrust, through conversations that would cut deep, through the struggle of rediscovering each other. But now, we both understood. Sometimes you have to lose something to finally realize its true worth.